Hello my lovelies. I'm starting this video like very different to how I usually do. I mean, normally it's very high energy, but we've got cozy vibes today. I mean, aside from the like brightest lights you've ever seen in your life, but today we're just gonna have a bit of a chat. Also, if I look to the side, I'm reading off my laptop and I'm also ill, so there may be a lot of cuts just for me coughing, and I feel like I'm not gonna be able to read very well, and also my voice might sound destroyed. So please do forgive that when watching this video. I would have done it at a different time, but I do want to get this out before the end of May. Because if you didn't know, it's May the 16th when I'm recording this intro, and it is currently Mental Health Awareness Month. I wanted to make a video talking about mental health, talk about my mental health and my experiences, and letting other people share their own experiences. I've been grateful enough to get videos and stories off of other people that I will be sharing in this video. I think talking about mental health is especially important for many reasons. For being able to help others discover why they might be feeling the way that they're feeling, and to bring closure to yourself and to remind others that what they're going through, or whatever they're going through at this moment, they're not alone. I think that's something that I had to learn throughout many years of my life, and it's important to share and just like let people know, like keep bringing awareness and keep talking about it, so then like people don't feel so alone, because feeling so alone it just sucks a lot, and I wouldn't want that for anyone. Feeling alone in feeling so trapped in your mind is so upsetting. I think it's just really important to keep talking. I mean, even on a platform or to people around you, it just everyone keep talking always about mental health. Okay, I've had to move location, and also it's just an entirely different day. When I recorded the first batch, I was more ill than I am now. I'm gonna reattempt to read my story, so that's just the only reason why you're gonna see like different perspectives of places that I filmed some of these stories. Yeah, this is my story. My mental health journey has been one that's quite difficult. As a result, I couldn't really tell you where it started, because there was a lot of my childhood that my brain does not allow me to think about, making me forget spots of memory. Something that I have felt for the entirety of my life, though, is that I've always felt in some way that I don't fit in. I've always been a lot more emotional than other people, at times a lot more inattentive and isolated. That is an issue that we don't have an exact answer for, or not yet anyways. I confidently say though that one of the biggest events that shaped me from a young age was my dad moving out when I was only 4 years old. Obviously at the time I didn't really know what this meant, having difficulties processing all throughout my life and being so young. I didn't really think much of it. It's been through the years where I've really thought about it and allowed myself to grieve the perfect family that I desired to have, and that I get to see everyone else experience. I'd always see complete families look so happy and wonder what I'd done to deserve a life where I didn't have two perfectly present parents. Another event that I've only recently just opened up about, but one that shaped me incredibly as a human, was my sexual assault story. I always say that I don't really remember when it was, due to me trying to block out the memory. I always say around 7 years old, but that is something that I was never able to fully process. It was only in a PSHE lesson a couple months back in school that I really realised the extent of the issue. I'd always questioned to myself whether it was or wasn't, and now I feel the need to say that if you ever have to question your sexual assault story and you struggle to believe that it was, then it probably was. However, it's worth opening up and talking about. That is something that has affected my abilities to function properly, is doing things like meeting new people, doing things alone, and even just going out to meet friends can be mentally exhausting, as I always believed that the worst of the situation would happen. There have been many times that I've struggled with friendships, being someone who can't properly socialise. I've stayed in relationships that weren't good for me, out of fear that I'd end up alone. I've gone back to people that I most definitely shouldn't have, because they made me feel valued for just that small moment before things essentially came crashing down again. I think because of that I often question my self-worth, which is something incredibly difficult to deal with. I often felt like I needed to be punished for this, for the way that I thought and even for the way that I treated myself and others due to me isolating myself constantly. and because of that I'd started self-harming, first at 10 years old. That is an issue that is carried on through my teenage years and a habit that I don't think I'll ever fully break. I'd never allow myself to open up out of fear of being shamed, of people not taking me seriously, but also never wanting to worry others. I also never opened up about any of my struggles to my own mother for so long. I remember reciting to teachers who I'd opened up to before my mother that I didn't want her to believe that she'd failed as a mother, and I knew she had her own struggles too. I thought that the only way out of my own head would unfortunately have been suicide. Looking back, I realised how wrong it was for me to think that way. There were so many people I could have spoken to who would have listened, but I'd always shaded those thoughts away. I always let the negative thoughts win, and that is not something that I wish on anyone. Please do not consider suicide to be a solution to your problems. There will always be another way out. One of my ways out was UK YouTube. I found comfort in the YouTubers that I watch, videos that stick out to me, the Chris MB3 Peaks video, the Batch and Other podcast on anxiety, and an old James Marriott stream about mental health. Because of the YouTubers that I watch, I've been given the most wonderful opportunities. I've been able to travel to new places, meet so many new people with the same interests as me. I've gotten back into old hobbies like painting, sewing and photography. I've overcome fears like solo travel, even being up on stage in front of 1,000 people for the Batch and Other podcast. I've been recognised by so many creators for my efforts, and even been convinced to start YouTube. That is the reason that you're watching this video. I couldn't be more grateful for what UK YouTube has indirectly given me. Also, because of UK YouTube, I've met so many people that hold such a special place in my heart. I met my girlfriend Sky because we both happened to be at Arthur Hill and James Marriott's set live at Leeds. From the moment we started talking, I knew that she was going to be an absolute constant in my life, and she has been. Sky has never let me isolate myself, constantly talking to me and allowing me to open up without fear of shame, which is something that I've refused to do for so long. We've known each other now for almost a year, and there isn't another person that I would want to keep more in my life. I have UK YouTube to thank for that. Another note is that my sister has been a rock for me throughout my entire life. With every event that we experience together or separately, she's always been there. We often joke and laugh about our issues, but together we both understand that we will always be there for each other. I feel so much love towards my sister and everything that she's done for me. I hate to imagine a day that our bedrooms aren't right next to each other. A day where she doesn't come into my room and I act annoyed but laugh at whatever she does anyways. I love my sister a lot and I have a lot to thank her for. Every part of that journey to healing, the good, the bad, the ugly, are all reasons of who I am today. If you were to show younger me that young woman that I'd become, I wouldn't believe half the things I've been able to achieve. Though I still have hard days, everyone does. I've just finished my first week of GCSEs and now moving on to my second week. And I'm not afraid to admit that I'm not in the best mental state because of it. I don't deal well under high stress situations, often freezing up and essentially forgetting how to function, which is something that I have to deal with and live through every day. I also struggle a lot with health anxiety, thinking that little things have such a bigger root cause, and oftentimes it makes me feel like I'm going insane. Though I'm not physically ill, the mentality that I have towards my health makes me feel ill constantly, and in turn I can tend to mistreat my body's needs, which is something that I'm still working past. However, I'm constantly opening up about my emotions, what worries me, and I'm being offered help. It seems scary, but you'll thank yourself for doing so. So please keep opening up. You are loved and you are wanted. Okay, next we're going to look at some other people's stories. I've been given videos and I'll show them, and then I will speak through some stories that have been sent to me. I will mention trigger warnings before each video and before each speech.
I think with me being a YouTuber and still being in school, there is moments where people like to have a bit of like a laugh with it, and most of the part, like, I am totally fine with it. Like, I'll go along with it, that's fine, it's funny. I mean, it's funny to them anyway. But there was one specific moment where these people that I know put a couple of my videos on a TV in school, and I think in the moment when I saw, I was like, oh my god, like, this is the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me. And I just couldn't really do anything about it because I knew they were only joking. But I also knew that, like, oh, I could just tell them, can you please turn it off? But in my head, I sort of went, oh, I make YouTube videos for people to watch. Why am I telling them to not watch it? And yeah, it just really, like, I don't really know. I was just so like, oh, what do I do other than act like I'm okay with this? And there wasn't anything I could do other than act like I was fine with that. But yeah, that's probably a moment that has stuck with me, especially when making videos, because actually at the end of the day, on my way home, I deleted some of the videos that they played. And I know they did not mean it in like a harmful way or to embarrass me, but yeah, it really wasn't great. But I deleted some of the videos that were shown. And then that kind of made me realise, like, I think if that happened to any other person who did YouTube my age, they would have deleted their channel completely. But what I did in my head, I went, oh, okay, so I don't like that they've done that. I don't like seeing that video on screen. I'm going to take it down, but I'm going to continue making YouTube videos and I'm going to make them better. So if this happens again, I won't be as embarrassed. And that's kind of why every time I make a YouTube video, I watch it a lot and think, right, I need to make sure this is okay, because if this happens again, then I don't think I'll be able to deal with that again. But yeah, that's one of the issues with being a young YouTuber, still being in high school. People do like to have a joke, and even if they didn't realise it, like, I know they didn't realise it, and I haven't actually spoken about this really. But yeah, I think as long as I was okay with it, which I kind of wasn't, but I just thought, oh, like, I'll let them have this moment, like, you know what, it's fine. But yeah, and I have kind of come over that, and now I sing, like, if you see my older videos, you will see the difference, because when I'm making videos now, I'm always thinking I need to make this as good as possible. But yeah, and that's pretty much the only experience that's really kind of affected me. But even then, it wasn't that deep. It was kind of just like, okay, this can't happen again, I need to make my videos better. And to be honest, in the future, I think more things like this might happen. But that's what I'm still trying to learn. How do I come over that? And anyone that's watching this that is trying to do the same thing as me, just one piece of advice: be careful with, you know, what you post, because I don't want anyone to feel like embarrassed by their content, which is exactly what I felt. So good luck, and yeah.
Hi, I'm Shannon, and I'm a survivor of sexual assault. Over the last 5 years, I experienced many struggles, and I never got to the point where I thought I was ill enough to the point I needed help. I was very dependent on myself, which caused more hurt for me alongside everyone else around me. I would keep everything to myself. I never opened up or anything. It was always me against the entire world. But it got to the point where it started to impact my day-to-day life a lot more than it should have, a lot more than I should have let it. And I reached out to multiple places, and although I got turned away from quite a few, I eventually began to get the help that I needed, which I'm now going through 2 lots of therapy. Well, no, 1 lot of therapy now. I've finished my 2nd one last week, and I'm still ongoing for a few more sessions with my current support, but it is one of the greatest things I've ever done for myself. It took a lot, and it was hard, and I panicked and I struggled, but it gets a lot better, and it is such a great thing to do, whether it's reaching out to a professional or even a friend that you know you can speak to, or even a family member, anyone at all that you feel safe to talk to. It helped me a lot. I went from struggling with a lot of things that I myself am not proud of, which can range from addiction in substances or in harm, but it does get a lot better. My head was full of things that no one should ever feel or think, but looking back on that now, to see the help that I originally didn't want and then I took it, is really, I feel a lot better within myself. So please don't do the whole strong act, because yes, you may be strong, but no matter what struggle you are facing or no matter what it is that you've gone through, you are not on your own to deal with it, and nothing that ever happened or it is happening or whatever is in your head is not your fault, and it is always important to reach out to someone for help.
I'm going to be talking on my experience with mental health and also mental health as a general. Mental health is something that should be valued a lot to people. Something that everyone will suffer with eventually, whether that's having a good mental health or having a bad mental health. You know, there's days, there's weeks, there's months, there's years. It's not classed as failing. If you feel failed or disappointed of yourself because of what you are, how you are, it's not failing, it's just progression. Failing is when you completely give up. But if anything, you're learning. The mistakes you make, the errors, everything. A common thing with mental health when it gets to a certain extent is self-harm. People use that as stress relief to feel something, you know. As someone that has been suffering bad from self-harm for the past 2 years, it is used as it's like a scapegoat, you know. You get a little rush of dopamine, you get a little relief, you know, and then after you get the guilt, thinking, oh, why have I done this? I could have done other things to help, you know. But everyone's got their reasons, everyone's got their ways of coping. But it's not worth going to the extent of committing. That is something I have also had a problem with. I was at a point in my life where I did in fact just wanted to go, but I couldn't bring myself to it. Too many loved ones, too many people cared for me that I didn't think would care. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. Because at the end of the day, you just got to be strong-minded. It's difficult, yeah, but you can't change, you can't get help unless you reach for help. Sky's the limit, you know, like anything's possible if you really put your mind to it. Help, not everyone wants it, but it's needed. If you want to get better, you gotta get that hand out, you gotta grab on. For an example, I do therapy. I have check-ins with doctors, stuff like that. I do have a long resume of inflicting on myself. Over 300 scars of it, and I hate it. I don't like it. But every scar tells a story on how you've messed up, but you've managed to climb back up. You fell, there's a ladder. Pick it up, climb it, scale it. No matter how tall the ladder is, everything can't just get better like that. It all happens over time. It's difficult to speak on to people, you know. It is very difficult. Some people want to be by themselves, some people want to be open. But either way, you will get better eventually. Whoever's watching, if you do struggle with it or have in the past, there are people out there for you. People do care. It's not worth damaging yourself or ruining yourself. Better yet, leaving. That's the worst thing you could do. You don't end your story because of a bad chapter. Not every novel, not every story, not every poem can be perfect.
This is kind of like last minute for me, and it's kind of like an awkward thing for me. It's not last minute, but like at night. I was meant to do it earlier, but like my brain's a bit wild. So I've like struggled with mental health like a lot throughout my life, and like my hardest times was during December. I was getting severely bullied, harassed, stalked. It was horrible. I'm not gonna go too in detail about it, but like my mental health is so bad. I got like not camps, but like therapy, and I was getting help, and I was speaking to police and seeing people in college to help me with not being scared to be in college, and like to actually be able to enjoy my course, because my course is music and I enjoy music, and like just in general I was trying to enjoy it because that's the thing that brings joy to me, brings me back to my own mind, my peace. Sorry, my TV keeps going off. Going off track. But the things that actually, when I was in the dark places from December to about March, April, like that, not even that long ago, the things that actually brought me joy was like mainly like Arthur Hill's music, Olivia Dean. I'd have my music, I'd watch Italian Batch and he'd actually make me smile. I found like joy watching AB, like vlog, The Fellas, Sidemen, like things like that, like YouTube music, and actually being forced to go out my house by my friends was like a main for me to actually go and actually do something to stop myself from rotting in my bed. Like literally Christmas Eve is when is when it all went really bad, and I was like abusing, self-destructing myself, and it wasn't great. It got to the point where Christmas Day I didn't want to do anything. I sat and didn't speak to my family much. I was awkward, I was non-verbal, and I just had my headphones on. I didn't want to speak to anyone, and it was like, it was bad. Like I didn't leave my room for weeks. I wasn't eating, so I was losing a lot of weight. And my mum was noticing that. My mum was like trying to get me to eat, but I didn't have an appetite. Arthur Hill ref. Sorry. Not good time. But it was like difficult because you want to motivate yourself, but you've got your bad thoughts. But the things that actually got me through it was Arthur Hill's music, Olivia Dean, my metal, the fact that I kind of just started a band around then. I didn't really want to do that, but that got me motivated. And the fact I had a YouTube. Still to this day, I go back and watch my favourite videos that I watched
that got me through those hard times was AB and George playing random games. I'll never forget them. I still go back to them now, and I watch them when I'm not feeling great, and I think about, oh, they got me through the hard times in life, and I'll always have those videos. I can't remember the name of them. The one where they were vlogging. I remember the ones where they were vlogging, and I will never forget, they were my favourite videos when AB and Chip were arguing and George was commentating. But yeah, that's kind of my thing that felt so awkward in my life.
I'm going to now be reading some of the responses that I got when I asked people to send me stories about their mental health. So the first one is, my mental health story started when I was young, late primary school / early high school. I always struggled to fit in and would often find myself cope with emotions improperly, which led to intense anger and deep depressive episodes. During lockdown, I was incredibly alone, had very few friends, and my best friend had not long committed suicide. I didn't have anyone to talk to about it, and I didn't feel safe enough to talk to my parents / family about what had happened. This led me to losing sleep, barely eating, engaging in self-harm behaviours, and thoughts of suicide had started popping into my head. Everything was incredibly tough to deal with, especially going back into school after lockdown regulations had lifted. I developed an eating disorder and my self-harm had gotten worse gradually over time. I was putting on a front coming to school and shutting down entirely from the minute I got home to the minute I woke up. Things at home started going downhill. Verbal abuse was a big struggle in my household and nowhere felt safe. I didn't know where to go, what to do, and who to talk to. Towards the end of school, I was still struggling. I wasn't receiving any support and had passed the point of wanting it. I could only see one way out, and it was unfortunately suicide. I planned everything, wrote a note, and that was it. Waking up the next morning felt like a nightmare. I was in agony and I was incredibly nauseous. I will never forget that feeling. I felt so much shame about it and I was terrified someone would find out about it. I went to school that morning and did my first GCSE, not telling anyone that I'd attempted the night before. I remember leaving the exam, locking myself in the bathroom and just crying. I was spiralling. I had harmed myself pretty badly. That moment was the moment I knew I wanted to change. I found my favourite teacher and forced myself to open up. It was as simple as, I want out, I need help. I think that was the bravest thing I'd ever done. And though it was terrifying, it was the first step to overcoming. The day I started receiving support, I became increasingly comfortable with a mental health professional. Though it was scary at first and a gradual thing, it was maybe the best thing I'd ever done for myself. For once I'd felt seen, I was able to get help for self-harm, suicidal ideation and my eating disorder. It took years, but it was something that had to be done. They listened when I was in crisis, helped me bandage my wounds when I was having a rough patch, and understood that I needed help. I had crisis called on me a few times to ensure that I was safe when I was in suicidal ideation episodes, and despite making a couple of attempts on my life, I was able to talk openly about it with them and shake a bit of the shame. I still struggle, but nowhere near as much. Suicide isn't the first thing that I consider when things go badly, and self-harm isn't my every waking thought anymore. Though I still occasionally slip up, I'm able to push it aside and get myself clean again without it sending me into such a spiral, which is growth. Remember, suicide shouldn't be the way out. It is a permanent solution to a temporary issue. Though it may not feel temporary at the time, you are loved, you are seen, and you need to stick around to see the brighter side of life. I'm living proof that things do get better. Stick around for a while, please. Another response I got was, my experience, it's been a long journey but I'll try to keep it short. I went through bullying from a really young age which ended up affecting my mental health severely. I've been diagnosed with PTSD from the trauma of it, and I have other diagnoses like OCD, depression, etc. I don't think I should go too much into detail, but there is days where I can't brush my teeth, I can't be bothered to get changed or even use the toilet. I want every single one of you who read/hear this to know that you're not alone. Even though mental health is being glamorised at the minute, does not mean your struggles aren't real. There's time where I'll get flashbacks from when I was attacked. I can't do specific things as it reminds me too much of specific events, but just know that no matter how hard it is, it does get better. No symptom is worse than another. No one's struggle is worth caring for more than your own. You're all valid and deserve to speak up and advocate for yourself. Another one that I got, which has a trigger warning for very in-depth talk about self-harm and suicide, was I've struggled with mental health for the last 6 years. It started in the first COVID lockdown. I was 11. Being stuck in my house all day, every day with family wasn't the best thing for my mental health, and it started declining heavily. I thought about killing myself, and I did attempt, while I also started self-harming. I was struggling really badly that in 2021, when I was 12, I started vaping and smoking to help with distractions for myself for a while, as the nicotine rushes was almost the same feeling as being high. I then continued to self-harm and attempt suicide until 11/21, 2021. That day I wanted to get better, as I was secretly struggling with my mental health. Since that day I've not self-harmed, but I have continued to try and kill myself. My last suicide attempt was the 25th of December 2025, and before that June 18th, 2025. I also recently tried to self-harm again. For any young person that is watching this YouTube video, please do speak up. I know it's scary thinking of it, but please do not suffer in silence like I did and continue to do. This is my sister's story. She actually wasn't going to do it, and then she sent me her story very last minute. So, thanks Mercedes. My mental health journey started when I was very young, although at the time I didn't fully understand what I was feeling or why I felt so different from everyone else around me. A huge part of my struggles stemmed from the bullying I experienced through primary school regarding my appearance, my weight, and the way that I acted. I was constantly made to feel like there was something wrong with me for simply existing as myself. At such a young age, hearing cruel comments repeatedly slowly changed the way that I viewed myself and caused deep insecurities that I still carry with me today. Alongside this, when I was younger, I was also taken advantage of by a family friend, which has had an extremely damaging impact on my mental health and the way that I view trust, safety, and myself as a person. I think experiencing this at such a young age made me internalise a lot of pain and confusion that I never truly knew how to express. Instead of feeling protected and supported during my childhood, I often felt trapped, isolated, and emotionally alone. When I moved into secondary school, I hoped things would improve, however the bullying continued. Rather than escaping the comments and judgment, it followed me to another environment and reinforced all the negative beliefs I already had about myself. Over time, this heavily affected my self-esteem, confidence, and ability to feel comfortable around others. I became extremely anxious socially and started struggling badly with being perceived by others, especially when I feel like attention is on me. Even simple things like walking into a room, speaking in front of people, or going outside can feel overwhelming just because my mind instantly assumes judgment or rejection. By the end of year 7, the emotional pain had become too overwhelming and I began engaging in self-harm behaviours as a coping mechanism. At the time, I felt completely alone and didn't know how to deal with the intensity of my emotions. Self-harm became a way of releasing feelings I couldn't explain properly. Unfortunately, these behaviours continue through secondary school and are still something I struggle with now. One of the hardest parts of my experience has been feeling as though I've never truly had a trusted adult or safe person to turn to. I never had a teacher I felt genuinely supported by, and when I eventually sought help through CAMS, I did not feel listened to, understood, or cared for. Instead, I often felt like it was just another task to complete or another appointment to get through quickly. Rather than leaving feeling supported, I left feeling more unseen and disconnected from help. I've also struggled to open up to my family, particularly my mum, because I know she has her own difficulties and I never wanted to burden her with my problems. I care deeply about my family, especially my mum and sister, who I'd do absolutely anything for, but because of this I often suppress my own emotions and suffer silently instead. Although outwardly I can laugh, joke and appear okay around others, internally I carry an overwhelming sadness almost constantly. It feels like there is always a heaviness sitting on my chest no matter what I'm doing. There are many times where I feel worthless, like I'm not a good daughter, sister or friend, despite caring so deeply for the people around me. I also experience a lot of anger and grief surrounding my childhood and self-image, and often wish that things could have been different for me and for my sister, where she'd also been affected. When it comes to college, I also believe that I'm going to amount to nothing, no matter how hard I try, and I do try hard. No matter how much I joke about my grades or potential failure, it's always in the back of my mind that my grades reinforce how I feel about myself. There have been many moments where I have felt hopeless and believed suicide was the only way to escape how I feel. However, despite these thoughts, I can never bring myself to put that pain onto my family. A part of me still wants things to improve, even if it is difficult to believe sometimes. A lot of the time I feel selfish for feeling this way because I know that there are people who love me and care about me, yet most days my mind still convinces me that I am too damaged, too sensitive or too difficult to truly understand. I carry so much sadness and anger from my childhood and the things that I've experienced, and sometimes it feels impossible to separate who I am from everything that's happened to me. Even when I smile or laugh with people, there is still a heaviness inside me that never fully leaves. I think I became so used to hiding how much I struggle that now I don't even know how to let people see it without feeling like a burden. Although I continue to struggle with these issues daily, I've recently referred myself to Lincolnshire talking therapies because I do not want to continue living this way. I do not want to wake up every morning already convinced the day will be unbearable before it has even begun. Deep down, despite everything I've experienced, I still hope that one day life will feel lighter and that I'll finally be able to see myself as someone worthy of care, support and happiness, because even though I continue to struggle, a part of me still wants to get better. I do not want my past to control the rest of my life forever. I want to learn how to see myself with kindness instead of constant criticism and anger. I want to feel comfortable in my own mind and body and be able to experience life without overwhelming anxiety and sadness following me everywhere. Referring myself to sport was a huge step for me because even though I'm scared, it shows that deep down I still have hope that things can change. I know healing will not happen overnight, but I want to keep trying because I deserve more than just surviving every day. And she also added a quote to her that reads, "Be gentle with yourself. You're a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it's clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be, and whatever your labours and aspirations in a noisy confusion of life. Keep peace with your soul, with all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams. It is a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy." And that's by Max Ehrman. This next one has a trigger warning for light mentions of self-harm. Okay, so it all starts probably around the beginning of secondary school, but I struggled through primary because of a lack of friends and struggling to keep friends because I always stood out. Throughout secondary, I was targeted a lot because of how I looked and that I was the weird kid. In year 8, I made a friend group for a few months, which was great until new people joined and they were always leaving me out and making plans without me, having group chats without me, and that made me feel so bad. It made me question my self-worth. I started to really struggle in year 10. At the beginning, I basically went through a massive traumatic loss, like my life came down and I started to self-harm. Never do anything like I've ever tried, I just couldn't control my emotions. I had all these things going on, body dysmorphia being another thing, and I really struggled, and it was up and down. Sometimes I was really good, others I was really bad. Then, right before my exams, another thing happened. The day before my exams, something happened and this boy continued to body shame me and spread rumours about me, and so again, I really struggled. I would get panic attacks. I wouldn't want to come into school, but I got through it. I finished my exams, skipped shirt signings and prom, which I don't care about, and school did nothing the entire time. College was a lot better. I still struggled on and off with self-harm, and that's something I think I'll always struggle with, but I finally got diagnosed with ASD just before my birthday, and that surprisingly helped me a ton. I got help in school for my exams. I got a therapist who helped me so much, and I still struggle making friends, but I've learned that that's okay and that the world didn't end. I now try to focus on myself and I've gotten so much better. Bad days are still there, but they're not nearly as often. To anyone struggling, please never give up. People will love you and you are so loved on this planet. Another response I got was, "Hi, my name is Daisy May, I'm 16 and I've always struggled with anxiety since I was little. I had my first panic attack in year 8, and when I went to my school counsellor and told her how I couldn't breathe, she asked, 'Are you sure you weren't just hungry?' I was basically dismissed and continued to have panic and anxiety attacks frequently at school after that. With changing friendship groups, I always felt ashamed of my anxiety struggles and stopped talking openly about how I felt. Just over a year ago, I saw my nan die in a quite traumatic way out on a pavement in my village. This was less than 2 weeks before my GCSE exam started. I felt like any small progress I made had completely disappeared as I masked my grief to try and revise. It felt as if my entire world fell apart. To make matters worse, over that summer I got time to actually grieve properly with exams over, and my friends at the time decided that it wasn't fair for me to focus on myself instead of them, and so they stopped texting me. They planned meetups on days that they knew that I was busy, made group chats about me and started talking about me behind my back. I lost nearly all of my school friends who had promised no matter what that they would be there for me and would stay in contact once we left school. I started watching way more YouTube than before, seeing it as a complete escape from reality and finding comfort in my favourite creators. Only in the past few months since I had made friends at sixth form in September have I felt safe enough to be myself within a group. They understand my struggles and don't push me too hard. They get that sometimes I just need to sit with my headphones on watching a video to ground myself, and they never judge me for my feelings. I've been lucky enough to have two best friends through all of this. Even though they're both at a different school, they've always just been a call away when I'm too overwhelmed. Anxiety is something that we're told we all have, but some have it harder than others. Some experience anxiety attacks daily, some have panic attacks daily, some feel as if they're fine normally but in certain situations can trigger them. I'm taking every day as it comes, and I've much healthier coping mechanisms now and the right people around me, but I didn't always, and I'm grateful for how far I've come. Okay, so I've read everything out to you that I've been sent. I do apologise if I missed anything. It's been hell trying to get everything organised into one doc so I could have everything in one area, and also I'm doing this in between sitting GCSE exams after school when I probably should be revising, but it's fine. Yeah, so is probably the end of May by the time this comes out, and I did want to do this because obviously May is mental health awareness, as I said at the start, but I think, well, I know we all should know that mental health should be something that's talked about year round. It shouldn't just have one specific month to talk about it, or a specific week in the month that is entirely focused on mental health. Obviously it's something that should be talked about all the time, so I just wanted to use this video as a way to tell you that everyone needs to keep talking about mental health all the time, because it's incredibly important. And yeah, this is the end of the video. Just a reminder, you are loved, you are so worthy and deserving of everything, and please, when you watch this, just let it be a reminder to you that you are important. And yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know how this makes you feel. Maybe we do more sit down talk videos. Leave a lot of love in the comments, and yeah, I'll see you later, hopefully. Bye!